Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys. Okay, sorry. Let's go. I'm sorry if there's a static noise. Merry Christmas, guys. Merry Christmas. How you guys doing? All right? Good. Happy December. Keep your chin up. We're all eating a turd sandwich out here, all right? Some of us have mustard on ours, but it's still I don't know what I'm saying. Why did Britain and France stop fighting and become allies? Would you say they're the oldest enemies? Like have the oldest history of present day countries? All right, let's go.
France and England, later Britain, haven't exactly had the greatest bond throughout history.
Your mother.
Both have claimed the other's throne, they fought many wars against the other, and their relationship often finds ways of finding new lows. Yet, the last war between the two was during the reign of Napoleon, and for the 200 years after this, not only have the two kept the peace, but they've even become allies. Which raises the question, why? Why did Britain and France stop fighting? So, after Napoleon had been thoroughly dealt with, Britain was sure to invite France to the Congress of Vienna, in which the new Europe would be built. And the reason for this was simple. Fear of Russia. Immediately after the fall of Napoleon and the restoration of the Bourbon,
Crimean
Britain
War?
and France came to an agreement to consult one another if there were any European crises, particularly crises concerning Russia. After the Congress,
Crimean.
Europe was mostly at peace until the Crimean War.
So the
This saw
Crimean
Britain and
War was just like ended up sort of being useless. I just want to see. Wasn't it something to do with the church?
France team up to limit Russia's power and expansion. And they further worked together during the Opium Wars, which meant Britain and France had just discovered something that they both had in common: putting other nations down. Which led to the birth of a mutually beneficial relationship. Britain would let France take the lead on European affairs, and in return, Britain wouldn't have to deal with European affairs and would be free to concentrate on its global empire. This didn't mean that the two were now friends or allies. When Napoleon III warned Britain of a rising Prussia,
Greatest emperor, greatest leader of all time in the history of leaders, Napoleon III.
the British saw it as nothing more than a French attempt to conquer Belgium and Luxembourg, which was confirmed when Napoleon tried to gain both in return for neutrality in the Austro-Prussian War.
Oh, wait,
Bismarck
what?
was
Hold on, what
rising
now?
Prussia. The British saw it as nothing more than a French allies. When Napoleon III warned Britain of a rising Prussia, the British saw it as nothing more than a French attempt to conquer Belgium and Luxembourg,
Bismarck.
which was confirmed when Napoleon tried to gain both in return for neutrality in the Austro-Prussian War. Bismarck said maybe, and when it was time for Napoleon to buy Luxembourg, he changed his mind and threatened war. Britain mediated and decided that Luxembourg wouldn't be sold, which damaged relations. This wouldn't improve too much until after Napoleon III was ousted during the Franco-Prussian War, which ended in the unification of Germany. This concerned Britain and embarrassed France, but with Napoleon III no longer in charge, relations between the two soured again. This was mostly due to overlapping colonial ambitions in Africa. France had ambitions across much of the continent's north.
Did he ever get back in power, or was that it after that?
And it wanted to control the lands from west to east and link their colonies. Britain wanted the same, but from north to south, and tensions flared. Britain made preparations for war and began to mobilize, and the French were forced to back down. This was mostly because France was internationally isolated at this time, and it wanted to keep Britain friendly in case of war against Germany. And so, Britain and France remained distant until Kaiser Wilhelm II of Lee in town. This was mostly because France was internationally isolated at this time, and it wanted to keep Britain friendly in case of war against Germany. And
No, you don't have to worry about that. That would never happen.
so, Britain and France remained distant until Kaiser Wilhelm II of
This guy. All right, my mind was a little bit changed after, I think, one of the World War One. I got to get back to that. The series World War One, from the Great War, week by week, and I'm thinking this guy. Yeah, there's no fun. You can't point at any single figure or country, but I think this guy is definitely not one of the leaders who handled the explosive situation. Like Europe was like a powder keg, just with gasoline and oil and dynamite all over the continent. And it took very diligent being careful with all the world leaders. And it seems like Wilhelm was just like running around with a torch, just like not lighting the thing on purpose, but just careless.
Of Germany decided that it would be a great idea to adopt an aggressive foreign policy. In particular, he
Tell me if I'm wrong. Again, I might sound more confident than I really am. All right, I'm still learning about World War I.
pushed for a massive naval build-up to
gotta shut up.
Germany, and so Britain and France remained distant until Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany decided that it would be a great idea to adopt an aggressive foreign policy. In particular, he pushed for a massive naval build-up to challenge Britain's Royal Navy, which forced Britain to seek closer relations to France.
Question, guys.
As such, naval build that it would to challenge Britain's.
I learned in another video that in World War I hope I'm remembering correctly, like 30% of the military budget of Germany went towards developing this navy. When you're a country with the geography like Germany, of course, a place like the United Kingdom needs a strong navy. And so they're going to spend a lot on it, and it's going to be really good. But why divert 30% or as much as it did to building up a navy that there's no way they're going to catch up to the British? And it's going to be much needed on the mainland, on the Army and the Air Force.
Royal Navy, which forced Britain to seek closer relations to France. As such, it joined the Entente, which wasn't a formal alliance but essentially a declaration of good intentions. As you'll know, World War I kicked off and Britain at first wasn't too keen on joining. It was only when Belgium was invaded and that British leaders saw that an ascendant Germany could challenge its global empire that they got involved. And after this, the two's interests aligned. Neither wanted a resurgent Germany after the war, both were suspicious of communism, and they desperately wanted to keep their empires. Which is why, barring a few exceptions, Britain and France were thereafter on each other's sides, since both saw that allying together would help them to maintain their influence. And so, Britain and France became friends for one simple reason: fear. Fear of losing their status as global powers from Russia, Germany, the Soviet Union, and to an extent, the United States. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for watching.
Thank you for making. I feel like France and Britain, Spain and Portugal and the Netherlands, I feel like are like the really, maybe Spain and Portugal are like the really old geezers, if not dead, like the empire. I'm making an analogy of the empire to people. And like France and England have been, the kings of the world for so long now. And now they see Germany, and it's like, they're threatened. It's like at a job, like these two people who have been there for 20 years, and then they notice this guy who's really good, and they're threatened by them. I suck at analogies. They're threatened by the younger, upper-coming guy. Awesome. Love History Matters. This came out today, so I will make sure not to steal views on their first day. That's where they get most of them. And upload it tomorrow or the next day. See you guys.